Well, here we are on a Saturday night. We don't often do Saturday night shows, Mr. Rayo. It's the Joe and Joe Weather Show with my colleague Joe Rayo and myself, Joe Chaffee, in case you're new. And in case you are new, subscribe to my YouTube channel with your Gmail account as we inch closer and closer to the magic 10,000 mark. We're at 9,501. So I'd like to get to 10,000 before Christmas. Anyhow, we
That'd be nice.
have it would be.
Yeah.
Joe Rayo is has his YouTube channel too, Joe Rayo Weather, and you should subscribe to Joe Rayo Weather so you can see his short fuse updates, his primers on all sorts of subject matter, be it meteorological or astronomical. You can find it there on Joe Rayo Weather. So,
You know what I wanted to do, and I never got a chance to it. It's too late in the season now for it. How to attract hummingbirds? If you've always wanted to try doing that, but it's in a little while. I'm going to be back probably tomorrow. I'll be taking the feeders down for the season as the birdies head south toward the Gulf of Mexico and South America. So maybe next year.
yeah, there's only one hummingbird species that in the east. There's like a ton of them out in the west.
The ruby throat hummingbird. Anywhere east of the Mississippi, you get the ruby throat. You're absolutely right. West of the Mississippi, there must be about a half a dozen or 8 or 9 different species of hummingbirds. But anyway, it's getting colder out there, Joe. My high temperature today here at Putnam Valley, 62 degrees with bright sunshine.
Smokeless skies. It was
Smokeless
deep
skies.
blue, smokeless skies. There was a considerable amount of frost last night in parts of Pennsylvania and upstate New York and into New England, ending growing seasons in some areas. And now we're going to do it again tonight. There's another round of frost and freezes that are frost advisories and freeze warnings that are up. And of course, we have Tropical Storm Beta in the Gulf of Mexico, which is just sort of mulling around at the moment, and Hurricane Teddy is moving along. I didn't see anything today in terms of what is going on at the moment with these systems, as well as the forecasts and what the models are doing with them. Nothing really has changed very much. So the same logic that we were talking about yesterday applies today, I think. Nova Scotia passing east of Bermuda by a fair distance, the eye passing east by a fair distance, and then doing a north northwest jog and then a north move and maybe a north northeast move as Teddy uh, starts to ramble up, accelerate northward toward Nova Scotia for Tuesday.
Yes, Teddy almost seems a little drunk, if I may use that term. Instead of making a straight beeline, let's say to the north, it is like wobbling a bit, especially when it interacts with that upper level trough that we've been talking about for the last couple of days. That will swing across our area tomorrow, move offshore, will develop kind of a bagginess and kind of an upper level low pressure system. And as Teddy reaches that, instead of going straight, it kind of like goes this way and that way. It looks like right now, Joe, that the storm track is, according to the Hurricane Center, is taking it to the east of Halifax and actually curves it to the northeast, straight down the middle of Newfoundland. So both maritime provinces, Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, are on the hit parade for this as we move into Tuesday and Wednesday of next week.
And the other thing we should emphasize with Teddy is that once it gets far enough north, it starts that transition to an extratropical storm. It's going to do what extratropical storms do, which is that the wind field starts to spread out. So you get a larger area of gales, but you don't have that sort of concentrated area of the strongest winds. So you have winds go down, but you have a larger area getting 50, 60, 70 mile an hour winds. And the other thing that happens is, of course, that the rain area starts to pivot around and go to the west side of the low center. So you have more rainfall west of where the low passes, and less rain but more wind on the east side. So just bear that in mind. If you folks up in Nova Scotia how to handle storms, you get a lot of them, be them non-tropical or the occasional tropical storm or hurricane. So fingers crossed that everything uh, goes easy. That maybe the system kind of takes a little bit of an eastward jog. We'll keep our fingers crossed and keep an eye on things. Here's the latest satellite view. Joe, and the U.S. The smoke is clearly confined west of the Mississippi at the moment. Covers the entire western half of the United States. Although I'm noticing that in California and in parts of the Southwest, this seems to show up a little bit better today. And you see clouds up in the Northwest. So there was some shower activity and some rain that went through there in the last 36 hours. And of course, here in the Northeast, back to the Great Lakes and the upper Ohio Valley, where we had deep blue skies and sunshine all day. The smoke is gone. A lot of clouds from the mid Atlantic southward. Some of those high clouds kind of pushing into southern New Jersey at the moment. And you can see Tropical Storm Beta on the bottom of that frontal boundary in the Gulf of Mexico. Not particularly well organized at the moment. And you're just now on the right. I'm sliding the picture over so you can see it a bit better, but what appears to be a rather large eye is coming into this satellite view of Hurricane Teddy, still moving toward the northwest.
Right. Well, you know, Joe, you said a few moments ago about deep blue skies. Certainly, relative to what we had, the skies were a lot bluer today than they have been in recent days. I'm looking at the I'm looking at a fire and smoke map. I'm not sure if this is from NOAA specifically, and I'm not exactly sure either of the valid time, but it still has some light smoke over this part of the country. Again, I'm not sure of the valid time here, but it's a lot clearer over in northern sections of New York State and on up into Quebec and Ontario, Canada. And the wind is going to be coming in the next 24 to 36 hours from those zones. So maybe the skies will get even brighter and bluer when we get on into tomorrow, especially after that trough moves on through tomorrow, that upper level disturbance that'll set the stage for Teddy's arrival in the Maritimes on Tuesday into Wednesday. And as far as beta is concerned, I guess now all eyes are on that, especially since the folks down in the Gulf Coast have certainly had their fair share over recent days and weeks from tropical cyclones. Certainly been an active season for them.
The rain right now from Beta, Joe, is hitting an area that got some of the area that got hit with the big rains from Sally earlier this week. So southern Alabama, the western part of the Florida Panhandle, southern Mississippi, and into southeastern Louisiana. It's been raining and raining hard there all day long, and then it just kind of cuts off. There's nothing going on along the Texas coast, which is where all the warnings are up at the moment, and in southwestern Louisiana. So the system definitely has this sort of tilted look to it on the satellite that we just saw. And we'll get a tighter shot of this in a moment, but I just wanted to show you what's on the radar. Also getting a little bit of shower activity in northeast Florida and scattered in South Florida. But as far as the Northeast is concerned, and the Mid-Atlantic states, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, nothing. I mean, it's just absolutely bone dry. Pretty much everywhere east of the Rockies. Getting some showers in parts of Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, and a little bit of shower activity still going on in parts of Washington State. So that area has calmed down from the standpoint of rain and much needed rain with these wildfires, but still nothing going on in California. WPC, Mr. Rayo, has 10 to 15 and even a 20-inch rain amount circled along
Ouch.
the Texas coast, and this is due to this very slow movement. The bigger deal here is going to be rain, even if it becomes a minimal hurricane, which is going to depend on whether the shear gets out of the way. Uh, the rain is the bigger story with the slow movement. But Joe, not almost from Maine down to South Carolina and west to, oh my, I mean all the way back over into the plains. A large area of the U.S. is not going to see a drop of rain for a week.
No, it looks like we're, that one rainstorm that you had yesterday morning, and I didn't get anything. So it looks like since then it will indeed be dry right on through the end of this upcoming week, and we make the transition this week too, in the astronomical sense, from summer to fall. That'll happen on Tuesday morning at 9:31. We're in the midst of the last official weekend of summer. Ironically, it feels a lot more like the early weekends of the fall season. And yet, Joe, temperatures by Wednesday and Thursday, before the next weather front arrives, could very well warm up close to 80
Could
um,
be.
by midweek.
Could be. Of course, the next date that of grand importance after the autumnal equinox, of course, is the first Sunday of November, when that abomination known as daylight saving time goes
Yes,
away. So
yes.
we can only hope and pray. All right, let's start with Tropical Storm Beta, if the maps will load for me, and they do. And these are the current conditions. We can pretty well see where the low center is by looking at the wind barbs out in the Gulf of Mexico. So it's right in between the one that is reporting 81. I don't know what that buoy is. Let's see what that is. Um, that is the Magnolia oil platform, Joe. Okay, just so for a point of record, it's the Magnolia oil platform, 224 feet up. This is measured,
Wow.
and it is. They usually give you a location in latitude, longitude. I'm not seeing it for some reason, but no matter. It is reporting north northeast at 22, gusting to 31. Then there is the other Magnolia oil platform to the east of that, which is reporting a north northeast wind at 30 but gusting to 40. And this one is also 224 feet up. And then we have the the buoy out at 26.4, 90.8. Okay. And being a buoy, there's no elevation here, obviously. South southwest wind there at 36, at 27, gusting to 36. Now, you get closer to shore, and Eugene Island, uh, which is south of the Louisiana coast, now, obviously, their thermometers aren't working because they're reporting a temperature of minus 40 and a dew point and a wind chill of minus 78. Okay, so we know that their thermometer is out, but it's east northeast at 25, gusting to 55 there. And the South Marshall oil platform, now this wind is measured at 224 feet up, is east northeast at 45, gusting to 59. And along the coast, we're seeing some gusts up to gale force in parts of southeastern Louisiana along the coastline. The winds turn more northeast along the Texas coast, but nothing that really stands out. We have hurricane warning watches that are up. I don't think they changed them on the advisory. If you want to give the advisory a check, if you can, Mr. Radio, at nhc.noaa.gov. But
Yes.
I'm seeing they had hurricane watches up from Port Aransas north and east. It looks like they still do. And tropical storm warnings actually go out a long way up the Texas coast and go all the way halfway through the state of Louisiana. It looks like they might have even pushed those tropical storm warnings further east because of the winds that they're getting there. So I don't see any major changes in the warnings from earlier. So
Storm surge warning in effect from Port um, Aransas, Texas to High Island,
that's
Texas.
Port Aransas,
Aransas.
and I've been to Port Aransas. Yes,
Oh, well, lucky you.
yes.
Including Copano Bay or Copano
Uh,
Bay,
yeah, or Copano. I'm not sure.
Copano Bay. Yeah, this is the sad part about being somebody who's not in the area and does not know the lingo,
Right,
so to
you
speak.
don't speak Texan.
San Antonio Bay, Matagorda Bay,
Right,
Galveston Bay, Galveston,
you
oh
got that right.
Galveston. Yes, well, I can thank I can thank the song for that, Glenn Campbell. A storm surge watch has been discontinued from Port Mansfield, Texas, to Baffin Bay, Texas. How in the world did they call it Baffin Bay? I mean, there's Baffin Bay up in northern Canada in the polar regions, and down in Texas they have a Baffin Bay. Anyway, and so they have storm surge warnings in effect, storm surge watch, hurricane watch in effect for Port uh, uh,
Aransas.
Aransas, Texas, the High Island. Basically, I don't think anything has changed since you last looked at it.
Okay. And the tropical storm warnings, do they go all the way east to southeast Louisiana? They
To
were
intercoastal
in a
city
coastal city.
Louisiana.
Okay,
Right.
very good. All right, so not much has really changed from the watches and warnings, but folks, you go to nhc.noaa.gov and you pull up the latest advisory because they'll be updating that again at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And I got the tight satellite view here. We'll give a real good look here at Tropical Storm Beta. There's a little bit of a tilt to it, so there's probably still some shear going on. Although we are seeing, unlike earlier today, where the low-level center looked like it was, for a time, was completely exposed from the main convection, and that's a sign that the system is not very well organized. But we have seen some convection burst near the center this afternoon and into this evening, and it looks like it's doing a little bit of expanding here. It's also not moving. I mean, it's just basically sitting, or at best drifting to the west. And again, problematic because of the fact that you're talking about a rain event here. And of course, the moisture is getting just thrown northeastward. So you're seeing these bands of rain coming into southeast Louisiana until you get this westward motion and start to shift this a little bit further to the west. The rain's going to continue. And of course, as always happens with tropical systems on the west side, as you await the approach, you do wind up with some beautiful weather. And they probably did have a fair amount of sunshine. Although, Joe, I'm noticing the smoke here. You can certainly see it over Texas and northwest Louisiana into parts of Arkansas and Oklahoma. The smoke certainly playing a role there. But again, it just cut off completely. For a change, we got a nice break here in the east.
Yes, and as far as I can see, Joe, aside from Beta and from Teddy, there's really not much to talk about. Any new system. I mean, admittedly there are a couple of systems that are being watched or monitored, but I guess you could say that compared to just a few days ago, where there was like five named systems on the map. Now we only have two names
Right,
and three names.
right,
We have
three.
we have we have Beta, we have Teddy, we have Wilfred still kicking, and then we have that one system that's off of Africa, another that's out near
Yeah, the wave that came off
Bermuda.
Africa doesn't look good. Wilfred actually looks rather pitiful right now. I don't know how much longer it's going to last. And the other thing is, Joe, on the upper right, you can see some convection developing around a low cloud swirl south of the Azores. That is what's left of Paulette, which is drifting southward. And the Hurricane Center has a 60% chance of this uh, getting tropical characteristics again. So maybe we'll have Paulette back at this time tomorrow. Who knows?
All that is not dead.
Not yet, but just still hanging tough, and still a couple more waves back in Africa that are moving to the east. We'll see what they do when they come offshore. I tend to think at some point when Teddy and when Beta play themselves out, maybe we're due for a break. You can't keep this paint. You just, as active as it is, and as active as the season is, the atmosphere needs to do a little recharge. So don't be shocked if things start to shut down for at least a few days. They did that back in 2005, so it can't run nonstop. The other thing I would point out, Joe, is that we're starting to get to the last week of September, and the Cape Verde season begins to wind down at this point. There's not that the push across the Atlantic. The trades start to weaken. So you start focusing your attention on areas further to the west with regards to tropical cyclone development.
Right, right. All right, so
So
it's
let's
good that
move.
we get take a breather, so to speak.
Yeah. So here's the hurricane model track guidance for Beta. Again, not much has changed from yesterday. It's still very confusing. You've you you you've got the hurricane tracking models, and as well as some of the global and the mesoscale models all over the place in terms of what's going to happen here. All of them approach the Texas coast, but it's afterward that we wind up seeing complications, and that's due to the fact that I'm going to bring up a graphic that I drew on my for my website post earlier today, and I think this sort of explains what's happening with respect to the upper air. And let's see if I can do this uh, in a moment here. So I got to switch sources, And here we go. Okay, that's good. So basically, folks, this is what your upper air looks like. You have Teddy on the right. You have uh, weak upper ridge or upper high that's centered over Florida or just east of Florida. It is a weak upper ridge. Teddy is able to crash through that upper ridge, which is why it's moving northwest and not westward. And then once you go, say, north of about 33 north, 33 degrees north or so, you start to get into a southwest flow in the upper atmosphere. And that southwest to west flow increases as you move further north. And that's what Teddy is going to eventually get caught in. It's also going to respond to a trough that's going to be dropping into the northeast on Sunday. But as far as beta is concerned, it's really stuck in between these two upper highs. You got the ridge off over Florida. You've got an upper high that's centered back in West Texas and extends to the West Coast. And there's this sort of no man's land in the middle, Joe, where there's really no flow at all, no real push. The northern part of the jet stream, which is the one that's stronger and would move things along, the southern end of that is, I mean, you have to go almost to Chicago to find it. So it's not going to get any help from that. So it's a matter of just responding to whatever happens in that weak flow that you see in the western Gulf of Mexico, and that's why this thing is going to be around for at least several days or more. And there's a lot of uncertainty with regards to where it will ultimately wind up.
Yep, and with not much of a flow, there's not much you can do with a tropical system. In contrast to Teddy, which will be drawn in by that upper disturbance as it swings across our area tomorrow, and then out to sea, and that'll get picked right up by that, and boom, that'll head it right up toward the Nova Scotia and Newfoundland region. It's actually is this the second time that they've had a tropical system, or am I mistaken? The Maritimes now. Uh,
Um, Gee, I don't know how much impact did they get from Isaias. I don't remember. This is the first hurricane of the season that's moved up the coast
right,
for
right.
them.
And we
Uh,
haven't had too many of
and they
those
had Dorian
around here.
last year, so
Yeah.
which was pretty fierce. All right, so the other danger, as we mentioned with beta, with the weak upper flow, of course, is the fact that you're dealing with a slow-moving system when it moves inland, and that leaves the potential for some very heavy rains, which the Weather Prediction Center, as we showed you with the preset map before, was certainly very bullish with 10 to 15 inch rainfall. So somebody's going to wind up with a foot of rain out of this. There's your official Hurricane Center forecast track. They do no longer strengthen it to a hurricane, by the way. They leave it as a tropical storm all the way through, and I think that has to do with what's happening, what you're seeing on the satellite. It's not that, again, that there's shear, there's that tilt there, so it lowers the probability of it strengthening to a minimal hurricane. And then, of course, it gets on the coast and it just takes its time, turns northeastward, straddles the coast on their forecast, and eventually winds up in southwest Louisiana sometime on Thursday. So this is going to be around and we're going to be talking about it for a while. So let's now mosey on to Hurricane Teddy, which is holding its own. It really hasn't done very much today, Joe. I don't think um, it's come off those highs in terms of the wind, but still the presentation on the satellite is fair, and you can see when it goes to the infrared after the sunset goes by. There's a wraparound of convection coming around the center, so maybe there was an eye wall. It looks like maybe the eye wall replacement cycle was underway. We'll watch to see overnight if that eye reappears, but it's on course. I don't see any. It's still moving northwestward and moving right along. So you see Bermuda, that little white dot there on the center of your picture toward the top, and again, I think it's going to probably pass east of Bermuda by 100, maybe 120 miles or so.
And still, they'll get some gusty winds. I mean, it's not like what they had with Paulette last week, with the eye going right over them, but another round of rather adverse, showery, squally weather that they'll have to deal with to kick off the new week. And as I said the other day, it's almost this happens one more time for them. they may want to start coming up with a song like if it's Monday, it
Must.
must be stormy or must yeah something.
And there's your Hurricane Center forecast. They actually take it down a notch from major hurricane status as it approaches Bermuda on Monday, but still formidable. And then north and then northwest, making it extra tropical when it's east of Cape Cod. I don't know. That might be a little too soon. We'll see. But nonetheless, the same. It's the same story, and you're going to see this track. Um, right now, I guess if you want to make a guess, uh, central Nova Scotia or the eastern half of Nova Scotia, and then as a an extra tropical storm with tropical storm force winds moving over Newfoundland during the day on Wednesday.
And that probably will lead to a certain number of power outages for both Nova Scotia and for Newfoundland, and perhaps even for Prince Edward Island as well. And again, it all rolls up into one 24-hour period of storminess, which will run probably from about midday Tuesday to midday on Wednesday. And I'm sure they're aware of it. They're going to be battening down, and we'll be sitting off on the sidelines under sunny skies
Right.
and wishing them the best.
The tracking models of the hurricane tracking models for Teddy are all unlike what we saw for Beta. These are all clustered fairly tightly. There are a couple that take it straight over Nova Scotia, but all the rest of them do what the global models do. The European still remains, by the way, on the western side of this envelope, and the GFS is a little bit closer to what these models are. So let's take you to the GFS, and we'll show you what's happening. And this is the map that shows you what the GFS thinks the radar is going to look like. Our part of the forecast is easy, Joe. I was looking through the models earlier today. I think you could make a case that you might not see a drop of rain for the rest of the month. And certainly for this coming week. Of course, we've got this big high to the north that it's eventually going to reform along the mid-Atlantic states as Teddy moves up. And you see Teddy on the right, Beta on the left. Teddy, Bermuda, is at roughly at about 32, 2.5 and 64.7, and Teddy's going to pass out at 61.8, so 2.5 degrees to the east. So that's about 150 miles east of Bermuda. That certainly keeps them out of the core, but as you said, there will be tropical storm force winds and some rains that will come in on the backside. Beta, meanwhile, never really gets going here, but you do see the rains moving on to the Texas coast during the day on Monday, and then the center just kind of stays just inland of the coast and weekends. Teddy moving northwest after it turns northeast, north, and then northwest as it approaches Nova Scotia by Tuesday morning. Rains on the shore there, and then it starts to slide it to the east as we move into Tuesday night and Wednesday. So the center goes over eastern Nova Scotia, but at this point, Joe, this is where it's probably extra tropical with all the rains on the west side, and the heavier rains are going to be west of that low center, and then it's just going to move right along. Thankfully, it does move along, so it's not like it's just going to, like they do in the Gulf of Mexico or over Florida in the southeast, where they stall for days at a time. It was high. These systems, when they get up to this latitude, they just move, they fly.
And I noticed, Joe, looking at the Climate Prediction Center, that they have a slight chance of excessive rains. I'm wondering if this has anything to do with Beta. I mean, but it's late this upcoming week. They're talking about it for like the end of this upcoming week into next weekend. And I'm saying, really, is it because you think that all that moisture that we're watching or monitoring now is just going to simply stay down there or get suppressed down there for a number of days to come? But that's what they have, at least for later on in the week.
You folks could see that at least in the eastern half of the U.S., there's a weak front that approaches on Friday that has a couple of showers with it. You can count them on your hand. And then they go by, and then there's really not too much that happens. You have higher pressures along the East Coast into early next week. I was thinking this is Sal Blandino weather. We have a Sal Blandino pattern.
Sal Blandino has absolutely nothing to complain about.
Well, he was complaining about the smoke the last couple of days. Now he's complaining that it's too cool. But it's always something, as Rosanna Dana would say. And I'm just looking here, Joe, going into the end of the month. I mean, there's another front that approaches at month's end that goes on through, but we really don't see too much happening here on the GFS. The GFS still trying to show lower pressures off the southeast coast at the end of the month. It actually develops a little low and takes it out to the east northeast because another big high builds in. There was a something I wanted to show you. I don't know if you saw the European today, but on the European 10 day on the upper air was so much different than the GFS. It was night and day, and I don't know how to rectify this. So take a look here. If you could see it, you should be able to see it in a minute once we get through the delay. But take
Rectify or justify?
Yes, exactly. So look at this. Look at the deep this massive deep trough on the European at day 10. Okay, I mean this is monstrous in terms of the flow, in terms of the strength of the upper low over Hudson Bay. That
Wow.
trough goes all the way down, almost the bottom of that trough goes all the way down almost to Cuba. All right, so I'm going to leave big ridge in the west, a big upper high sitting up in northern Nevada, and you have a trough at 160, and you have ridging east of Newfoundland over toward Labrador. Okay, so that's the mark of the European. Now let's take a look at the GFS for the same time frame. Okay, so just give me a moment here, and this is for the same time period that the European has. I mean, this is really ridiculous. The European's trough is what I drew in red, and the GFS is behind it. The GFS has nothing remotely close to what the European has. Where there's a
Huh.
big upper high over Nevada, there's a deep upper low there.
Right. Right.
Okay. You still have this fast flow from Canada, but it's just this northwest flow forever and ever. Amen. No deep trough down to the Gulf of Mexico and down to Cuba. So they seem to be at odds with how, what's going to happen in the long range. If you believe the GFS, it's this dry northwest flow with fronts forever and ever. Amen. And the European would have something much more, let's say, a wetter uh, setup toward the end of the forecast period. So I'm kind of uh, my my gut, Joe, is to lean with the GFS because this northwest flow has been very persistent, and I'm just wondering whether the European is just doing too much with with trying to dig a trough so far to the south.
Diametrically opposite, almost 180-degree difference between the two. It must be that maybe the European along the way teleconnects a couple of minor troughs or whatever like that to turn into that big monster. That's my only guess here.
Yeah. So I just realized I didn't hit the OK button. So just to show everybody again, so here's the GFS at uh, 240 hours or 270. I don't know why. Oh, because I hit the button here. Hang on a second. This is what happens when I'm try to do something different technically. So this is the GFS, and here's the European at 200 at day 10 with that totally different. Much, I mean, just a totally different world that the European is showing us versus the GFS.
Yeah.
So uh, that'll be our conundrum for the long range. But for now, I always you know me, I always like the trend is your friend. So the pattern will hold until until it starts to show signs of change. And I'll just go with the same old story where we're in this dry northwest flow with weather fronts I don't know, every 3 or 4 days or so, and no significant rain in sight for the Northeast or the Mid Atlantic states, maybe for the next 10 days.
Right, right. It's going to be dry, Joe. And the Climate Prediction Center, I don't know if you got to look at their 3 to 4 week probability forecast. They have dry conditions for us, but also the entire 48 state region, the contiguous United States and Alaska, all above normal into the first half of October. I guess they're alluding to an Indian summer type weather pattern for our region, for our part of the world, as we move into the first part of October.
All right. Well, the European says otherwise. The GFS says, yeah, exactly. So we'll punt, like
So,
like most good forecasters do when they don't know, they punt.
is that, by the way, is that still a politically correct term now? Indian summer? Are we allowed to say that anymore?
Well, you said it, so if you get in trouble, that's your issue, not mine.
I mean, that's we grew up with that term, and so many terms now going by the wayside. I guess when we see one of those high-priced TV weathercasters use it, and suddenly they come down on him or her, that we'll find out. Otherwise, I'll just continue saying Indian summer.
Well, this is our show, and we function
I should even
in an open forum here, so I'm not one to succumb to pressure. So I'm okay with it.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask. I'm asking the question on Google right now. Is,
Okay.
wait a minute. Hold on for a second
All right,
here.
you find out.
Uh, is it politically incorrect to use Indian summer to describe? I'm just going to read here. It's dubbed Indian summer, and for San Francisco, it's an part of National Weather Service defines it as, well, we know that. San Francisco, but the politically correct test for the term appears to stand on shaky ground by today's standards.
I saw
Shaky
a
ground.
just on that subject matter. I thought it was kind of funny, but I saw this little bit. I gotta. I'll find it and I'll send it to you. But it's produced in England. It was made in England, and there's a group of people at the beach, and they want to take a picture. So they ask this other person who happens to be there, just riding his bike, and he took a rest, if they would take the picture of the group. So the guy says sure. He takes the phone camera, and he turns and he's getting ready to take the picture. And he says, "Okay, say cheese." And one of the people in the group says, "Excuse me, but I'm a vegan," and so I find that offensive. So he says, "Okay, well, why doesn't?" Then he says, "Why doesn't?" Uh, well, just think of something happy and smile. And another person says, "Well, that's not inclusive. That singles out people who have depression." And just like everything he would suggest to try to get these people to be happy, they would come up with some politically correct thing. And there was one term he asked them in terms of how to smile, and I wish I could remember now what the word he used, but it's a common term. And someone said that was offensive to dyslexic people that have dyslexia. I just was rolling because, like, at the end of the day, all he does is, you know what? He turns his back, takes the phone, takes a selfie, takes a selfie with the phone, throws it back to them, and then takes on the bike and leaves.
It's a
And
crazy world.
and that's the
Crazy
world
world
we
we live
live
in.
in. Okay,
Yep.
so you know what? That's a Sunday morning show rant. What
Yep.
we're doing on a Saturday night. So let's put an end to tonight's show because we normally don't do a Saturday night show, and I want to go have my ice cream and my wine and everything else that I do on a Saturday
I got to
night.
figure out what I'm going to do, Joe. My daughter and my wife are at a baby shower. They were supposed to have left already. I don't think they even have left, and they're probably not going to get here until 9 o'clock. So I got to figure out. Now there's a chicken in the refrigerator that we've had picking on for the last couple of nights.
Must be pretty cold by now.
I'm tired. I'm tired of. I'm gonna have to call up and find out
Did she
from the ladies what I can do.
does Mrs. Rayo you know like buy the live chicken and then just
No,
take no. I know. I
no.
listen. I had an aunt that used to do that. I mean, she was very big on. She had a very low key personality. But when you showed her a live chicken, she just woke right up. It just it made her so happy. And you
The
would
other day I
all the
was walking
kids we would all be chased out of the house because they would have to take care of the chicken.
the other day I'm walking around the back of my pool, and who do I find behind my pool but about a dozen turkeys, wild turkeys, and
Be very careful. Toms will kick your butt.
they are very formidable birds, and they're also rather
Yeah,
big.
because they think that you're
So,
going after his females.
yeah, exactly,
Okay, which clearly you're not. Okay, but he
exactly.
don't know that. So,
Exactly.
yeah, you don't want to get caught with a swift kick from a turkey in the wrong place. You won't, you'll see colors you haven't seen in quite a while if that
Yeah.
happens.
Nasty birds. All right. So in about 5 and 11 and 17 hours.
Or less.
Be
11
back.
o'clock Eastern time tomorrow. Will
Okay.
be our usual Sunday morning show. Alfred Phillips from the land of the cold in northern Alaska near Barrow just jumped on at the end of the live stream. Watershed says that they ought to replace the high-priced weathercasters with the Joe and Joe show. If only. But we don't come cheap. Okay? So if you know what, if Dory Sherry wants us, then he'll have to pay through the nose.
You know, if some television executive is thinking outside of the box, instead of having what they have been showing on television for all of these years, they go instead with the two of us behind the anchor desk and just get into an argument. And finally, at the end of 3 minutes, although we never argue, but then at the end of 3 minutes, we just do the forecast. I mean,
You mean like the old 60 minutes with
point counterpoint.
point counterpoint?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
From the old Saturday Night Live. Jane, you ignorant slut.
Yeah. All right.
All right. All right. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern time, folks. Thanks for being here tonight on a Saturday night. And be safe. Enjoy this beautiful weather here in the Northeast and Mid Atlantic states. And be safe if you're watching from the Gulf Coast or if you're watching from Nova Scotia. Good night, everybody.
Good night.